It's 5:30. I'd like to call the special select board meeting to order. Do we have any agenda changes or additions?
Yes, we need to add community comments before the business.
Okay, is that it? Okay. So I guess we'll move to community comments. Anyone have any community comments that aren't on the agenda? No? Okay. So new business is update on Jersey Heights 3-acre rural stormwater project with Tyler Mumley and Brent Raymond. And I'll hand this over to Brent now, I guess.
Thanks. So appreciate you all coming in and those that are online. Appreciate it. The last update I provided you, I apologize, it's been a while, but I've really not been able to provide any update until 2 weeks ago. We got some what I consider good news from the state, but I'm just going to try to bring you up to speed on what we've been dealing with the state. So we had this in-ground infiltration system that had been submitted to the state A&R DEC, back in 2021 roughly, and the permit was in sort of like a pending status. Once we went through the process and the select board approved moving forward with the ARPA funds and accepting responsibility, because the town accepting responsibility because there was no HOA in your community, and breaking out, percentage wise for community members. Mumley immediately submitted plans for approval of that underground filtration system. The state took 4 months plus to respond to us. And, I had to make several phone calls to the state to let them know that we were on the clock for this ARPA fund that was also through A&R. When they got back to us, they threw us a big curveball. They said, this plan is not acceptable, and they requested that we add a liner system to it. So after all those months, we had to go back to Mumley Engineering and ask them to reevaluate the plan, including this liner system. Now, you might think a liner system, how complicated can that be? Well, they had to reach out to the manufacturer and ask the manufacturer, their thoughts on the liner system. And because of the water level where this proposed infiltration system is located, they came back and they said, well, you need 3-foot thick cement for the length of this infiltration system. This is a very, very abbreviated timeline here to just give you some context of what we've been dealing with, but that just increased the cost exponentially. And there were already cost increases because of, there had been a few years, plus tariffs and other inflationary pressures that were going on. So Mumley, sorry to call you by your last, Mumley Engineering, Tyler, and his staff and I spoke, and we honestly talked about potential of having to pull the plug on this because it was becoming too cost prohibitive and unrealistic. So we had more conversations with A&R, and in between this, there's regular communication with A&R. And Mumley Engineering did further analysis to look for alternatives. And so they have an alternative, and they presented it to the state, and the state has given us basically the verbal. I mean, it all comes down to us having to update everything and resubmit it to the state, but they seem to be on board with the plan. And the plan, they asked us to go back and do additional analysis, and then we met with them again. And I wasn't doing the analysis. Thank you to Tyler Engineering or Mumley Engineering to be doing all this and dealing with the state. At the same time, I was also renegotiating the ARPA contract because it looked at for several months, it looked like we would have to break the construction portion of this up into 2 summers because time has been ticking and it looked like they were requesting more and more. So the cost of breaking it up into 2 summer construction periods, the original estimate, was just way off. So I was also looking for other grant funding sources. So this has been keeping both Mumley Engineering and myself very busy, but we didn't really have any concrete answers or information to come back to you all with until 2 weeks ago. So we're here today as soon as possible to update you and make sure that we have your buy-in, honestly, before we keep expending money and move forward with this. I have renegotiated the ARPA contract. It was broken out, X amount of money for engineering, X amount of money for certain things. Now, essentially, the state will allow us to utilize all the ARPA funds by September of this year, because these are federal funds that were tied to a specific timeline by the feds. So we still need to use all these funds by September. That means that we still have to have a very aggressive RFP process, and we have commitment from the state that they'll turn this around very quickly once we submit. I was very honest with them that we essentially were in the 11th hour here. So I've negotiated the ARPA funds so that we can use all of them. There's no limitation on what they can be used for. And Tyler is here to explain to you what the new concept is. And the good news, in my opinion, is that those escalated costs, the substantially increased costs as a result of inflationary pressures and the state asking for a liner and then needing to include other engineering changes, are being brought back down. We do not have definitive figures yet, or close to definitive figures yet, but we can tell you that there's no way it will be in the realm of what we're looking at with the liner system. So with that, turn it over to Tyler, and then we'll just open this up to questions from everybody.
Thank you. Should I just get more technical on that background story?
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and share. See if this works, Judy. Okay. So everything goes back to this idea of the chamber system, which was based on a 30% design. That was grant funded back in 2020, I think, even before that, by a different firm, and they had been proposing these chamber systems across the state. And these chamber systems are literally, it's a hole. You dig a big hole in the ground and you put down a big bed of gravel, and then you put these half dome chambers on the gravel, and then you just backfill. And the idea is the water, and then you collect the storm water runoff and you run it through these chamber systems, and the gravel acts as a filtration system before the polluted groundwater, before the polluted runoff water gets back into the groundwater. Okay, so the whole idea is that you're treating polluted runoff water in order to save Lake Champlain. So that was all done without test pit data. They hadn't done any on-site soil investigation. And so fast forward some years later, when the ARPA funding came up, we were trying to figure out if this was 30% design was feasible. And so we went and dug some test pits out behind Dale's house, and we found decent soils, but we found the groundwater table was shallow. So what we learned at the time, talking to the consultant engineer that came up with the plan in the first place, is that it's still okay to put these chambers in the ground when they're underwater, You just have to put an under drain system in. So you send runoff water into a buried chamber system with an under drain pipe under it to just take that water and move it out and get rid of it. So instead of it being a filtration system that just goes back into the ground, it's a filtration system that goes through the gravel and back out to daylight. That solution for the under drain system was to essentially redo the storm piping that goes from behind Dale's house down her driveway and out to the stream that's out there, which dumps into Bedell Brook. Okay. The whole concept of the chamber system being where it is and the depth that it was designed at was that it was we were going to intercept the existing storm drain system that comes from the beginning of Jersey Way. There's stormwater pipes that run. I'm just going to get up here. I'm talking to the mic now.
Yes, you do. You can grab it. Right?
So this is about the high point, and water drains this way and water drains that way. Water coming this way gets into catch basins and storm pipe collection system through here. And there's a catch basin system that comes around here. It runs parallel with the sewer line that's in the ground there. It runs out past Dale's house out to the brook. Okay. The whole premise of this system was to put an underground drainage system right here and intercept those storm pipes. Those storm pipes are about 12 feet deep. And that's why this thing had to be so deep. Okay. The reason this works though is because the state requires that you pick up at least 50% of the impervious surface runoff. Okay, so if you add up all the impervious square footage, that's roadways, sidewalks, driveways, houses, anything that doesn't let water through it. If you add up all that area, we had to effectively capture 50% of that area. And so this yellow highlighted area represents a little over 50%. In order for the state to be okay with our proposed underground system, which is considered a tier 3 practice. Okay. Tier 1 is just regular infiltration directly into the ground because you have nice, dry, sandy soils. Tier 2 practice is something like a gravel wetland, which we're going to talk about in a hot minute. And a tier 3 practice is something like this stormwater system, chamber system, which is underground with an underdrain system. It's essentially a glorified gravel filtration. Okay. And so in order to be allowed to use a tier 3 practice, we had to capture at least 50%, even a little more. And part of the back and forth with the state was trying to justify this chamber system. They had basically say, hey, give us an environmental feasibility analysis, EFA, that justifies why you're not doing tier 1 or tier 2. And we said, hey, we're doing tier 3 and we're capturing a little bit more than 50%. And we explained that it's, we think it meets the rules as best as possible on this site. And so the first step was getting that approved, the idea, the concept of this. And then when we submitted the full application last summer, it took a while. We finally heard back from them. And one of their first comments coming back was that this system needed a liner. And this is like a thick, heavy duty, completely waterproof, black liner. And this is a chamber system that's about 18 feet in the ground. Okay. So it's literally, you're cutting out an 18-foot deep, I want to say off the back of my hand here, it's like, 30 by 50 rectangle, 18 feet deep. And then you're lining the whole thing with a liner, which right from the get-go just scared the bejesus out of me from a constructability standpoint. Further, when we started talking to the manufacturers of these chamber systems, buoyancy becomes a real issue, because if you're trying to put that pit in the ground with a liner and it's in the water table, then that's a lot of buoyancy pushing back up on the liner on the system. And so the manufacturers are not going to warranty the chambers to operate without some sort of buoyancy control. What that looks like is literally pouring a concrete slab on top of the liner before you put the system on it. So this continues to kind of get crazier and crazier and more expensive and more expensive. Also, the underdrain system, you have to have an underdrain system under that concrete liner to drain the water out from there. And so that has to daylight, which means everything that we were sending back out down Dale's driveway just got 3 feet lower. And it's already almost 20 feet deep in the first place. So that's just added cost and also just an absolute construction nightmare working in that corridor and going further into the stream because we have to daylight this. And so the stream's not that deep. I mean, it seems deep, but we're talking 20 feet deep. So that outlet pipe had to go even further into the stream. So then now we're talking about further environmental impacts. Cut to the chase. We went back and forth with the state and had multiple phone calls and emails basically pushing back on this liner and just becoming more and more uncomfortable with it. Essentially, the state said if you're gonna do this, you have to have the liner, and the manufacturer said you have to have the buoyancy control, and everything just got too out of control. And the cost went higher and higher. I think we're pushing something like $600,000. Once you consider the increased depth, the cost of the liner, the cost of the concrete slab at the bottom of the liner, and the added cost of getting out to the stream. And so what we decided to do is kind of take a fresh look. And this all goes back to the idea that the reason this was going to work was because we were intercepting this existing storm pipe and capturing over 50% of the impervious area. And so we said to the state, we can't do this system. The system is ridiculous. It's not going to work. We're concerned about long-term maintenance, long-term performance. The state doesn't care what it costs, but we kept using it as a reason that the cost was ridiculous. And we said, hey, what if we did a tier 3 practice, which we know is better, which performs better statistically, scientifically, per the state's research. But we said, what if we use a tier 3 practice, but we just collected less than 50% of the impervious surface? And so we proposed an idea that in the same area, instead of the chambers, that we put a gravel wetland. And instead of that area, we have a smaller area. So what happens in this situation is we basically lose all of this area because this area runs into the stormwater collection system, which we're no longer tapping into. And all that we're doing is we're using gravity and some swales to capture some of this impervious. And then we're using the existing drainage here, plus some proposed stormwater collection to capture that. And so this area is obviously much less than 50% of the total impervious. I want to say it's closer to 25%. And what we said to the state was, hey, we're only capturing 25%, but we're using a tier 2 practice, which performs better than a tier 3 practice. Can you buy it? And the state did. And so the benefit here, well, there's all the other thing is that we're not capturing at least 50%. We have to do what's called pay impact fees. Impact fees basically say, hey, for every square foot that you're short of your 50%, you just got to pay a fee. Now that fee isn't cheap, but it's a heck of a lot cheaper than the cost of what we're looking to do. What did Hannah? Do you remember what that number was? It was close to 40 or 50.
One-time fee of like 60.
Yeah. So to match the remaining 25% we're not capturing, like $60,000. In the grand scheme of the cost of that original, what we were about to get into, that chamber system of pushing $600,000, it's a good trade-off. And we think, and I don't have the numbers, but what we're proposing now as a gravel wetland is going to be a significant cost decrease for a few reasons. One, that chamber system, the gravel wetland is not 20 feet deep. Okay, it's ultimately about 8 feet deep. It sits about 4 feet below grade, and then there's about 4 feet of gravel and media. Okay, so it's 8-foot depth excavation versus 20 plus feet excavation. Now it is a little larger in area. The overall impact area is larger, probably about twice the size, twice the square footage area as what that construction area would have been for the chambers. But very significantly is that, again, it's much shallower, but we're also losing. Judy, what do you got?
Yeah, hold on. I'm shutting off Morristown, so people at home can see where you point, where you are. I
Okay.
can't see where you point to at home,
Oh,
because there's no pointer on it. So maybe they can see you.
okay.
Instead, so I just have the camera do it,
So
focus on you.
critical thing is that we no longer have to outlet out past the down Dale's driveway and into the stream. Okay. We're just going to directly connect into the existing storm structure, but because we're so much more shallow, we're able to get into that. We don't have to go all the way out to the stream. So that's significant cost savings. The other benefit, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought for a sec. I will say this does still need to be lined, but only the depth that is below the seasonal high water table. So it's a little less than 4 feet. We are designing this thing so that the surface is going to be about 6 inches above where we know the seasonal high water table to be. What a gravel wetland is you dig a hole and you put in gravel, and then on top of the gravel you put about a foot of media, essentially dirt, and then you plant the dirt with plantings. And so it's going to look and feel like a depressed field. So it's not going to be wet at the surface. It will be wet within the gravel and a portion of the media layer. But the idea is that we're going to control the water table so that it's 6 inches below the top of the ground within the pond. Pond. Gravel. I mean, a gravel wetland is a pond. And so, but that's how it functions. I can do the detail so you can kind of see it. So again, you have, existing grade up here. It drops down 4 feet. And this is essentially the top of the soil layer called the media layer. And then you have there's a foot deep. It's a mix of like regular dirt and then a thicker kind of more clay layer. And then underneath that is gravel. And so the water table sits 6 inches below the top. We control that elevation with structures within the system to get the water out of the system at that elevation. And so this area below here stays wet within the gravel and the soils, and that keeps that top layer plants wet enough to grow. And the whole idea is that water comes in here and it filters through the media layer and eventually it overflows. It kind of uses hydraulic conductivity to the water coming in kind of pushes down and the water at the bottom kind of gets out through the outlet system. The other interesting thing that we're doing with this system is a bypass. You know, when you're driving up Jersey Way and you take a left on Foss, and there's that swale on the right side. So we're gonna put a catch basin at the end of that swale, just before those the two units there on the right. And that catch basin system is gonna have a bypass functionality. So it's gonna only take on the water that we need to get into here to cover the treatment volume amount per the state. And so in bigger storm events, the gravel wetland is not going to get the total flow from the bigger storm events. At that catch basin at the end of the stream, at the end of the swale coming down Foss, there's going to be a bypass there to allow it to just go the way that it currently does. It basically goes through a pipe there around that house, and it goes out to the into the woods down into the ravine back there, and that eventually drains to Bedell Brook. So that's the bypass to allow us to make sure that this gravel wetland pond is not taking on crazy amounts of water during the larger storm events.
Why are we even doing this if it's only 25% that's taken care of? Wasn't it supposed to be more than that? As far as a percentage for all the rain and whatever from all the roofs and waters and or the driveways and everything? Why are we spending the money?
So we're all in a, so I'll answer that question and I'll go back to why we're all here in this situation. With this proposal, because we're not capturing 50% or more, that impact fee of approximately $60,000 will be taken by the state and it'll be used elsewhere to offset contaminations someplace. Right. So you all are in a difficult situation. The town's in a difficult situation because we're responsible for the impervious roads and streets. And because of that, and sometime in the past, you know, somebody from the town just assuming the town's name on the permit, we're in this situation. The state's in this situation because the feds came to the state and said, we're going to sue you if you don't start cleaning up the Lake Champlain Basin. So it's all trickling downhill. It's really illogical. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that this makes sense to me or anybody else, but you know, I believe that this, if they accept this is the lowest cost solution to be able to make sure that you all don't have to have stress about the state eventually coming down and putting something on your deeds that could impact the resale value of your homes. Could you clarify what you mean by pond? Because I think Dale is picturing year-round, 365 days a year, 2 feet, 3 feet of water.
Yeah.
Surface.
So again, let me go back to that. So I wish I had a good picture for you. I mean, ultimately, it's going to look like a field. Okay, so not a gravel pit. You're going to be looking at vegetation. Okay. Correct. It's going to be organic. It's going to be natural looking. There's going to be plants that are intended to be more wetland type plants growing in there, but because they I don't think we're planting cattails. We have a specific plant mix that we specify that goes in there. And I think cattails potentially could grow there. I'm not going to tell you they're not, but this, again, the way that we're designing it is to keep the water table below the surface, right? So you're not looking at wetness and just standing water. Okay. During storm events, the water level will rise probably above the surface of the vegetation. No. So again, we're designing this to not have to take on all the water from the 100-year storm event. And the way the initial calculations that we've run for this size pond in the 100-year storm event, it's still not going to overflow. Okay. We're doing that. Say what? I do say, and it's, it's based on our calculations. It's based on how we've do all of our stormwater design calculations, and that's the state standard, and using HydroCAD analysis for storm events. And, these things get designed this way all the time, honestly, across the country, and not just in Vermont. One thing we're doing to help manage the water coming into this pond is we're adding these additional overflow structures. So these are going to be like small stand-up pipes with a connection going into the outlet structure that already goes out there. The idea being that the elevation of those overflow structures spaced along the pond helps maintain the water before it overflows. Okay. Well, you're not going to see those, right? So there's a 4-foot drop down here, right? So this is 670, 669, 668, 667. The top of this thing is 666. All right. So from here, it drops down 4 feet at about 3-to-1 slope. And then these little guys are going to be sticking up at the edges. And their elevation is intended to capture when there's heavy storm water events and a lot of water comes into here. These are intended to capture the water and get it out and allow it to get out of the pond quicker. Okay, so if there's an overflow, the overflow is going to be on this side, and it's going to go back to where it's going to go where it currently kind of flows down past your house already. One of the things that we need to talk about, I want to talk about with Brent and Dale, you're here too, but right now you have that little cross drain across your driveway. And technically that's in the right of way, that easement. And we need to talk about whether or not that needs to be improved or not. And now's the time to make sure that that's part of the plan, because if this does overflow, it does overflow here and it goes down through there to get out to the stream. So that's something we need to talk about, whether or not that's part of the project. It's currently a 12-inch pipe. Again, we're not designing for overflow, even to the 100-year storm event, but you have to take protocol in the event that there is overflow.
So that's the first culvert from my house. Excuse me, there's another culvert that goes underneath the road.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's a 24-inch guy.
Right. Nothing is happening to that.
Correct.
Okay, so it's.
I mean, as far as I know, that functions.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one under your driveway is 12 inches. I know from being out there. I mean, even if we just cleaned it up, right, where the inlet is to that 12-inch pipe under your driveway, it's got to make an improvement to just make sure that's a drainage flowway.
Right, what gets me is we're all taxpayers here.
Can you give
Need the mic.
leave the
Just
mic?
need you to, you could name your name and your,
Lee LeBeer,
and you live
Jersey
in
Heights.
Morrisville. Yeah.
We're all taxpayers here. And we pay the state, and yet the way I see this is they're blackmailing us. We'll let you do 25% here, but you pay us $60,000. Why should we have to pay them at all? It's not fair. It's just not right.
Well, that $60,000. I'm going to.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's used for other things, but why should we have to pay it?
Well, I think we can take it out of the ARPA funds. So, and not that isn't taxpayer dollars. This whole thing, it's not anything logical. The whole goal of this was to protect your deeds and to protect the town and to capture as many dollars so that the town taxpayers, the municipality, would not be liable for as much money as it could be. So that was the whole goal of this. You know, we couldn't predict that when we submitted the design to DEC, they come back and say, oh, you need a liner, and then the manufacturer. So while it's not logical that, you know, we're thinking about paying $60,000 roughly, and I totally empathize and understand your frustration. It's a matter of, do we move forward? And, you know, we have verbal commitment from the state, or do we conceivably throw this all up in the air and wait for the state to come down on us? And it isn't, again, it is not logical. It is just what we're having to try to navigate through. If you could.
Krista Myers, I live in Morrisville. How much is the cost now for this new plan?
Yeah, we haven't finished the cost analysis based on these revisions, so I don't have that number. My expectation is that it's going to be closer to 50% to 3/4 of what the chamber system would cost.
The original cost of the chamber system?
Not the original. I mean, where we were at, you know, once we realized that once the state forced us to have a liner, and then we consider the liner cost, we consider the concrete slab cost and the increased cost of getting out to the stream. I mean, that number started pushing 600,000.
So that percentage of the 600,000.
That's correct.
Still more.
Well, I mean, the tough thing with the pricing analysis is that, you know, we're going back to like 2020, 2021, based on that original 30% design, which wasn't fully cooked. And, you know, a lot has happened with costs across the country, with inflation and with COVID, and you know, material costs have gone way up. Contractors are just charging so much more than they were just a short 3-4 years ago. And so that's why when you take all those considerations in, the cost has gotten pretty crazy.
And how much is the town going to pay on this?
We're paying our percentage, what is it, 30 something percent.
So do you have any estimate at all on what it's going to cost us?
I'm sorry, I don't have numbers right now.
So as soon as we get the go ahead from the state, I wanted to update you all. And I asked Mumley to be here, I asked him to get estimates, knowing that it was going to be very difficult, and the estimates would be initial, because they go through several different sources, from state contracting sources to other like local that they're privy to. And we're hoping best case scenario to be able to give you all some initial estimates. But I also wanted to update you all as soon as possible after the state gave us this go ahead, because first of all, you can talk to a couple of select board members here, like on practically a weekly basis. I was talking to them about, like, I need to update the residents, but I have nothing to update them on, because, well, 4 months went by and we didn't get any responses from the state. And so when I saw that the prices were escalating, I looked at strategies to get more grant funding, which are still possible, but with this potential solution might not be needed. And I understand it's frustrating that we don't have more concrete figures for you, but it was a question of, do we inform you as soon as possible, or do we wait however long more to be able to give you more concrete estimates?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like we've been scrambling hard the last few weeks, trying to get something the state could comprehend and approve, at least verbally, and then getting something on paper like we have, and trying to get an understanding of what this gravel wetland and this watershed area would look like. And we just haven't been able to put that into the numbers. But I'm going to tell you, and Brent said it earlier, that I can tell you that this solution, right, this proposed gravel wetland with the reduced stormwater piping infrastructure, and even plus the impact fees, is going to be the cheapest solution that could that could come out of this, period. And that's like, knowing that we're going to be working to try to get you a dialed in cost estimate. I just don't, I don't want to give you a number right now because I don't want to be lying to you.
As soon as we have the dialed in, we're gonna have another meeting.
You know, what's tough about the whole thing is if anybody wanted to sell their property, what do you tell people? Well, there's really a lien on my property because I don't know how much you're going to have to pay for 20 years to the town to be on this system. The whole thing is a scam by the state.
I'm not going to disagree with you, Lee, and it's been wildly frustrating on our end too, trying to explain to the state how ridiculous this is. I mean, when you try to tell the state, how am I supposed to stand in front of a group of people and tell it's going to cost them $600,000 to put in a stormwater system to slightly improve the phosphorus level of Lake Champlain? They don't care. They legit aren't allowed to consider the cost of something in their analysis of whether or not to approve it or not. It finally boiled down to me saying that this system, this chamber system being 20 plus feet deep with a liner and 3 feet of concrete to control buoyancy, it is not a system that I'm going to put my professional engineering stamp on. I mean, like that was one of the final last straws it took to get the state to accept the idea of only doing 25% coverage and paying the impact fees. All right. We had asked them to pay the impact fees 3 years ago. We said, hey, paying the impact fees is a whole lot cheaper than putting this underground system in. Can we just do that? And they said no, because cost is not a factor. And so when this all came to light, and again, we've been scrambling pretty hard ever since we finally heard from the state about this. And this goes, I mean, this every time we hear something from the state, we respond immediately and we wait and wait. And again, we've been scrambling hard to get there. And it is ridiculous. The whole thing's ridiculous. They're dealing with a law.
All these many months. But the thing is, what would happen if we pulled the plug on the whole thing? Are they going to sue everybody individually? Because we're not an association, they can't sue us. So they would have to sue everybody individually.
I mean, when this first came up, and this goes back to when Eric was here as the town administrator, that was a conversation we had directly with Terry Purcell from the state. And he said out loud on a conference call in this room that the state had mechanisms in place to deal with that situation. And that was enough to scare us the town to take action. And that this is a law. This is a state law that the town is required to address. Is that a fair statement, Brent?
Yeah, you're correct. They've been kicking the can down the road for a while. They actually kicked the can down the road a little bit more after we entered into this agreement, but it's still out there, and there's multiple municipalities that are having to deal with this. There's also 3-acre rule sites, other 3-acre rule sites in Morristown. The town's just not involved in. They're all commercial sites, excuse me, as far as I know. So, yeah, the state did make it very clear that not only Terry, but I believe I have an email from a deputy secretary that said that they have the avenues to pursue the property owners. And, I don't like operating off of threats, but I've been in real estate development, and not a lot of it makes sense in the state, and that's part of the reason why the costs of homes are so high. But it was a question of, do we capture this $316,000 worth of federal funds and try to take care of it and get it past us? Or do we roll the dice and keep waiting to see how long the state will take? And I believe that it was more fiduciarily responsible for the town and for the residents to go down this path. Now, if I had any idea that the prices were going to be escalating like they were, I would have from the get-go said, no, it's just not, you know, you want us to pay $800,000 or $600,000 for solution. Well, you cover 70% of that. So I understand your frustration. We literally have a conference call on a weekly basis for updates and strategies about how to get responses from the state, because they're dealing with, I guess, a lot of different issues and they take a long time to respond.
So what I do, state, when I bought my house, I was told that that was common. Sorry, Dale, I need you on my.
Just name.
Focus, yeah. So what do I do?
Your
So
name and
Dale Touchette, Jersey Heights. When I bought my house, I was told that it was common grounds, land, whatever. Nothing would ever be built on that piece of property. Now, it's not just mine that's going to be, well, subject to some sort of problem because there's 2 or 3 different houses down through there. I don't know how long this pond is that you're talking about, but that right now, that's a lovely, you know, mowed piece of property where kids can play. Now we're going to have a pond where kids are growing up. Now, I know you say there's not water, but it's still, you're going to have some sort of swampy, grassy something, I'm sure. Maybe not. Yes, no.
Again, the design,
Plants.
the design is that the water table is going to be 6 inches below the ground surface where the plants are growing. So on a daily basis, the pond should not be wet. If you went and walked in there, they're going to be wet areas, potentially, right? It's going to be 12 inches of dirt material sitting on top of 3 feet of gravel. And the top 6 inches of that dirt material is going to be dry, but directly below that is always going to be wet. So it's going to be a more wet type of gravel wetland.
Right. So you've got, as I said, this swampy area. I'm envisioning these other 3-acre places that we have here in Morrisville that look pretty shitty. I'll just put it that way. I'm seriously hoping that that's not what it's going to look like behind my house.
I mean, I think it's going to look like a natural pond wetland area.
Tyler, should this pond have fencing around it so that children cannot get in it for safety reasons? Or is it going to be dry enough to consider it safe for a child that wanders down there?
Yeah, I mean, we weren't intending to put any fencing around it. It's only 4 feet deep, and that's with a 3-to-1 slope, so it's manageable. It's not like something you're gonna like fall into and drown.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's 12 inches of a dirt material that sits on top of 3 feet of gravel, right? And so
You're gonna have to clarify when you say 4 feet deep. People aren't. You're gonna have to clarify what's 4 feet deep. 4 feet of water,
No.
or a berm that goes down.
yeah, so I'll go back to this detail. So this is ground level. Yeah, over here on the left, that's ground level. All right, just that's the grade out there. When you walk from your property onto this property, Dale, this is the ground. Okay, this elevation, it drops down 4 feet.
And that's where the horizontal pipes are.
Those are where the vertical pipes.
The
are gonna
vertical
be
pipes
there,
are.
Yep.
Okay, yep.
But this sidewall here, that can be mowed grass. That's okay. Just to clean, if you want to keep it clean, the town wants to keep it clean. And then this elevation, which is 4 feet lower than the existing grade elevation, right? So that's the 4 foot drop. So if you're standing there, you're gonna be standing on the ground, regular ground, and it's gonna go down 4 feet at a gentle slope. Okay. And then down at the bottom of that 4 feet, is essentially the top of the gravel wetland. All right, that's this elevation where you have the plants growing. Okay. And then there's a foot. These two layers here are like a dirt mix, a media layer, and that's so that the plants have something to grow in. And then the bottom 3 feet into the ground is gravel. And so this entire depth of gravel is saturated, is full of water all the time. I mean, the voids, right? I mean, imagine if you have 3 feet thick of gravel, like it's a lot of gravel, but there's water in it. And the idea is that is the filter, right? That's what filters the water coming in from the runoff, and it goes through the wetland layer, the soil layer, and then it gets into the gravel layer, and then that gets pushed out. And that's the flow of the filtration system.
So you're telling me that it's from ground level, this pondy thing is going to be 4 feet below ground level.
It's gonna look and feel like the bottom of the pond is 4 feet low, 4 feet into the ground. What you're gonna see is vegetation growing off of a ground surface that is 4 feet below the existing grade. So it's going to be like a bowl, 4 feet deep.
Is that water level truly going to be full all the time? Or it's going to depend on what you get for precipitation, right? It's not.
No, so
the
state is forcing us to still put that liner in.
Oh, so it will
right.
be,
So
it
you
will
can
be
see on the
outlet. Okay.
on the detail, it's hard to see, but there's a darker line around this.
Okay.
And so they don't want the natural groundwater intermingling with the gravel water. And so in the instance that, that seasonal high water table is lower, like in the very dry summer months when that water table is actually much lower, they don't want this gravel wetland drying out. The idea is that the gravel in the gravel wetland is always wet. So it's always acting as a filtration system every time it rains.
Okay.
So it essentially is a bath. It's a bathtub.
Okay.
And but you have that media layer on top, and the top 6 inches is dry. But when it rains and runoff runs into this thing, it filters through that gravel, and then that water pushes out through the gravel system.
Is that line of poly, concrete? What is that line?
That's just a polyplastic.
Okay.
And that's not going to be visible. That only has to go as high as the seasonal high water table, which is we're going to stop that poly line at about 6 inches below the top of the dirt surface.
Okay. Kristen, you have a question? No? Kristen?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think Kate actually had her hand up a lot longer than I have. But I guess since I'm on, so one question is cost-wise, how does this compare to the, before whatever has happened, in the last, let's call it 6 months or whatever? Brent, you would know a lot better. There was a point at which we got sort of a good sense. I think it was around the time maybe that the vote happened last year. I can't really remember, but we got some estimates. And I don't have those numbers like right in my head, but with the grant, it certainly, speaking for myself, felt like it was manageable. And I'm just wondering how much the cost has escalated. I understand the 600,000 that you're talking about between the two options that you just showed here, but compared to the prior options that were presented a while back, what kind of cost delta are we talking about?
So the number back, I don't even know the month now, approximately. I was going through my old notes and I didn't date stamp this, my bad. But the number was 430,900, and that was broken out into engineering costs, legal costs, etc. And I checked in with folks, and they thought at that time, you know, they thought at that time that it could come in around that amount. We built in an extra $100,000 just for inflationary pressures, to just cover anything that we might not be seeing.
Right.
And, you know, when we set up this meeting, we were hoping that we would have some initial calculations for estimates. Unfortunately, we don't. So as soon as we have them,
Yeah.
I will have another meeting. But I had to weigh, like, do we wait until I know we have more definite estimates, or do I inform you all now that we actually have a path with the state?
Yeah, and I know you just explained that a little bit ago. I guess I probably wasn't wording my question right now that I'm thinking of it, but it's sort of like trying to figure out what was it back then versus the 600 now. Obviously there was
There's 440,000 roughly.
Okay, all right. But hopefully we're not going with the 600 option. I realize that.
30% of that,
Oh, not the state.
or the town.
Yeah.
How much was the grant?
The grant was 316,000, which was a little over 70%. And the grant amount hasn't changed. I went back to them and said, I hear other municipalities aren't able to take advantage of their funds. Can we obtain more funds? It's looking like this thing is escalating. And they said no. But they did allow me to basically amend the whole thing, and they're not requiring that only maximum amount for engineering, only maximum amount for legal costs. Whatever the costs are as of September, when this grant ends, is what we can be reimbursed for. So that's another thing we're up against is now we got to move forward and submit something officially to the state, and we simultaneously have to put out an RFP because we need, you know, I kept telling the state, like, in January, like, I need to get an RFP out. February, I need to get an RFP out. March. So we're really up against a tight timeline here, and that only adds to potential inflationary pressures. I'm just being honest with you.
Yeah.
Wait. Okay, good.
Oh,
Kate?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Kate.
I put my hand up early because I could not see anything when Mr. Mumley went to the board. So if he does go to the board again, please try to describe what he's talking about because I couldn't see any of it. I've got a few questions. One, what does daylight it mean?
Daylight means when you take an underground pipe and bring it somewhere and allow the pipe to just come out and out of the ground. So like the idea that we were daylighting the chamber system, meaning we were running a pipe from the chamber system in the ground all the way out to the brook, kind of at the corner of Foss Street there, where the ground drops down into the brook. Mm-hmm. And because it's low enough there, the pipe comes out of the ground on the, you know, the side slope of the brook and daylights, meaning the pipe comes to daylight and allows the gravity runoff flow through the pipe to just exit the pipe and go into the brook.
So does that mean it's not filtered?
Well, the concept of that chamber system was that the underdrain pipe was under the gravel layer. So it was taking the filtered water that was coming into the chambers through the gravel, into the underdrains, and then going out to the brook. So it was filtered through the gravel media layer.
Doesn't all the water that goes into the chamber go into the brook eventually?
I mean, in the design that we were trying to get permitted initially, yes, all the runoff from 50% of the site was making its way into this chamber system through the gravel underneath the chambers and then into the under drains under the gravel and into the brook.
And what is it filtering? Is it filtering heavy metals?
A main point is phosphorus levels that it's trying to handle. And I'm drawing a blank on what the other unit of measure is that we're trying to help with pollutants. No, as part of our analysis, if yeah, we sent an analysis to the state comparing how a gravel wetland functions in removing the pollutants versus like just this chamber gravel system. And I'm trying to find that.
That was another one of the reasons why the state actually liked this system better. They had studies that showed that flowing water somehow is filtered. Water that's already contaminated with liquid is somehow filtered better through this. And that was one of the reasons why they were accepting of this, even though the percentage wasn't as high.
Yeah. So I'm sorry. So the goal of anything that the stormwater division is trying to do is lower the total phosphorus, increase the total phosphorus removal from the polluted runoff water, and also remove any total suspended solids, which is another way of saying dirty water.
Okay. And my last question is, does this new system have the same requirement for the easements throughout the neighborhood? Is it the same digging around?
So
And-
the other benefit of this is that I believe there's 30, Julie, is it 36, do you recall, easements for the old system? Well, it was approximately 36 for the old system. Now we're down to approximately half of that for required easements.
And you still require 100% of the property owners to give consent for those easements, is that right?
Well, yeah, for the reduced easements, the positive about that is that based upon what we were initially shown with this new proposal, there's only one remaining easement that we need to obtain, whereas with the older system, there was one resident that was going to refuse.
Right.
So that would have been an added complexity and costs. So those are a couple of other positives. It's half the amount of easements needed, and we're only looking at one. I also had a conversation with Mr. Howard Minash as soon as the state got back to us, and he is verbally, we're waiting to submit a proposed deed transfer to him, but he has verbally agreed to transfer that property to the town rather than an easement, just so that, the town is responsible for maintenance afterwards. So in a lot of ways, it makes it easier for us to be able to maintain it into perpetuity.
But does that also mean then he's no longer paying any part of the expense?
He doesn't have any impervious surface.
Uh-huh, okay. Okay. What if that last property owner does not give an easement? Can you still do the project?
Well, it'd either be alternative engineering, or we'd have to look at other options to obtain the easement.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
Hi, Chris again. Jersey Way.
Are you talking about Kristen? Are you talking to me?
No.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
oh, sorry.
Just checking.
A couple of questions first off, what happens if September comes and the state hasn't gotten back to you? Well, that's one. Second, who will this affect? Like where the truck's going to come in? You said there's going to be on the Foss Street. There's that kind of swale on the right. There's a lot of water that goes down there, and you're cutting across somewhere around Toland's house or somewhere around that's a question. Where would you be cutting across? Who would that affect? Where would the trucks be coming in? What sort of infrastructure is needed? Is it just right now there's a ditch that goes towards that pond area? Is it you just going to leave the ditch there or is there underground stuff?
Yeah, I can get into it here for you.
What happens? They don't respond until
So you want me
July
to,
31st.
so they assured us that they would respond in a very timely manner because they understood the potential ramifications. I was very blunt with them, not to threaten them, but to give them the reality of, you know, where we are with this project and that we're way back, you know, we're way behind and we can't, it's literally a crucial point. You either get back to us quickly once it's submitted or we're potentially done here. And so they verbally assured us that they would get back to us quickly.
If they don't, we're going to be done.
So Tyler, are you ready to respond to the second part of his question
Yes.
before we take others?
So this is where Jersey Way, and then you take a left and go down Foss here.
I think the arrow will show up.
Yeah, I mean if you can you guys see my cursor moving?
Yep.
Okay, because they can see that online, so it's better if I do it this way, I think. But there's a collection system currently of some swales and some pipes under the driveways, and this plan includes improving these to make sure that they're functioning. Right now, it's kind of a mess, and there's some old pipes in there, and so on and so forth. So there's an outlet pipe that comes to the top of this drainage swale. So that swale comes down as it exists. At this point, we'll have a catch basin here, and then we'll run a new pipe under the road. There's an existing catch basin there that we're replacing, and then continue the pipe, and then we're going to run the pipe back through these two houses, and then it's going to go out along the bottom of these lots, and this goes over to the left into the gravel wetland. So what's highlighted is essentially the area of impact for new storm piping to make sure that we're capturing all the runoff from this area and bringing it into that gravel wetland. And then this is the gravel wetland area. So that pipe, this is coming from where we just were looking, and this will exit into what's called a sediment forebay, which goes over a little berm, and then it goes into the gravel wetland area. There's also going to be proposed swales. There's a little swale that's going to go maybe about halfway to the Jersey Heights condos area. And then there's another swale that's going to come down the hill from behind those houses. And that's just going to be like a shallow grass swale currently where there is nothing to convey surface runoff waters into the pond as well. And so in order to construct this, this is going to be the majority of the earthwork, but so they're going to be utilizing this access. Oops, sorry. They're going to be utilizing your driveway off the corner of Foss Street to get into this into this area. And essentially this whole area back here will be a construction site.
So you said that little thing is sediment area. What does that mean?
Yeah, so we're required to have any runoff that comes from like roads or driveways where there is, sedimentation, like gravel, dirt, from roads and stuff. That needs to go into what's called a sediment forebay. And so it's a smaller collection area where the pipe comes in first, and that is intended to capture sediment, i.e. dirt, loose gravel that's coming through the piping system. And then when the water fills up there, it dumps into the actual wetland gravel area. So that way the water that's going into the gravel wetland area is cleaner. It doesn't have as much sedimentation, so that you don't have added dirt. What happens over time, and this is common for all pond type systems, is this sediment forebay over the years does gather sedimentation, meaning like when you look at it, you'll see like dirt accumulating from the pipe outlet. And over time, you do have to get somebody in there to literally not trench out, but excavate that out and bring it somewhere and dump it. Well, again, the sediment bay doesn't have the gravel wetland in it. It's just going to be riprap at the surface level. And so that should not be wet. As dirt fills it in, then you have to get in there and excavate the dirt out.
How many feet does that cover? How much of that property in back of my house is that going to involve?
So this bar right here, the length of this bar is 100 feet. So what's my scale? 20 scale.
200 feet.
So the main gravel would be almost 150, and then maybe another 40 to 50 feet for the actual forebay length.
Can you explain what a forebay is?
That's what I was talking about earlier. So that the forebay is where it's another depression. It's just a smaller area. And again, it's not wet. It doesn't have plants growing in it. The idea is that it's just riprap. And so when the runoff comes out of the piping system, that runoff directly from the roads and driveways and stuff, it has sedimentation in it. And so the idea is that the runoff out of that pipe goes into the sediment forebay first, where the solids and the sedimentation can settle, and then the water overflows into the gravel wetland area, so that water getting into the gravel wetland area is cleaner, and the solids have gone to the bottom in the sedimentation. And again, over time, dirt builds up in the sedimentation forebay, and you just have to get in there with equipment and dredge it out.
The sediment thing now is not going to Champlain. It's setting here in this sediment bay of junk from everybody's roofs, the roads, the salt, and whatever else is going in this little sediment bay before it goes into this gravel pond thing that's supposed to be filtering. But in the meantime, we've got all this sediment on top of the ground behind our houses.
Yeah, I mean, you're using terms that I'm not going to use, but it's sedimentation. It's like dirt and gravel from the road. And so over the course of years, you will see like more like dirt out at the outlet of the pipe, and you come in and you scoop it out.
Swamp, honey, clay, whatever stuff that's going to be sitting there.
Yeah, the bottom of this forebay is not table, so it's not. I mean, during storm events, obviously it's going to be wet and it fills up with water and it dumps into the gravel wetland, but it's intended to dry out and be dry.
So. This water is all of the snow is melting and water is coming down right beside my pine trees, which is going down into a, I don't know what you call it, a, manhole type of thing where the water goes from there underneath through the piping that's going down the drainage that you said you're not going to do, that nothing is going to be going through that, my stone wall thing anymore. Where is that water gonna go? It's coming off the bank now. If it's not going to go down through and go into that manhole and then go down through into the brook.
Right. So currently, like on this plan, all the water that's uphill of your house is currently flowing down. And I think a lot of it is catching that swale, right? There's that a kind of existing swale that's in your backyard. And doesn't that dump down and go around the house mostly?
No.
I know you have a catch basin out here in your front yard. Yep. Yeah. Well, so what's going to happen is that this proposed pond and the length of everything on this side too, it's going to be mostly intercepting that stormwater runoff coming down the hill. So, I mean, ultimately, this system is going to help dry up your yard. It's going to be essentially intercepting runoff that would be going into your property. And instead, it's going to be capturing it into the wetland system and then dropping it into the outlet so it goes directly into the brook.
I hate to say this again, but I think it was 1970. I didn't bring the paperwork with me, but the town approved this subdivision, Jersey Heights. And it was approved by the state. And all the roads and the catch basins and everything were turned over to the town, which they accepted. So why are we responsible for this? They accepted, Menage turned it over to the town, and they went and accepted this without any.
So the town accepted the roads and the street and the sidewalks?
And the catch basins?
Well, everything that's in the right of way, but the catch basins are capturing runoff from the 66% of impervious surface that the homeowners have. So the town is taking 33% of responsibility for the roads, the sidewalks, and right of way, but 66% of the impervious surfaces are driveways, and private housing. So that's where the calculations come from. And that was modeled, that was updated before we move forward with the vote, the first vote.
Oh, the percentages?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question. My
Can you,
name's Tracy.
Tracy, can you hold on one second?
Oh, sorry.
Jerry? You're muted, Jerry. Jerry? We can't hear
You're
you.
muted.
Okay, Tracy?
Is this on?
Yeah.
I live on Jersey Way, so I live above Dale, and so I look down at this area. Like you're on the same level, Dale, so like you won't really see it, whereas I do. And you're saying, I just wanted to clarify that It's gonna be grassy, right? The whole thing's gonna be grassy.
That's
What
correct.
I look at.
That's correct.
It's gonna- Behind the trees. Oh.
Hi, Haley Woodside. I live in Morrisville, and you started the meeting with a statement that I just wanted to clarify, Brent, that you wanted to, that part of the meeting was to make sure that that there was still buy-in, and I don't know what that means really, what capacity we have and so forth.
Well, I wanted to update you and see if there were significant concerns about this so that the select board could hear it. And if, you know, we're under the gun here for timeline, but as soon as the state came back to us with a verbal commitment to this, I felt it was our responsibility to update you, answer any questions, answer any concerns. I know that a lot of people don't like this in general, but you know, you, sir, were mentioning in the meantime, before this project is done, we're sort of out there with this risk, and what do you disclose? So if the solution isn't now, then it's, you know, I don't know when that solution, I don't know any alternatives. So that's what this meeting is, one, meant to update you, two, hear your concerns. If there's something, you know, significant, we want to know about it before we spend more money on Mumley Engineering submitting to the state. We want the select board to be aware of those.
So it's information gathering and sharing, but there's not really anything that the community can do at this point.
Well, I can't speak on behalf of the select board. I mean, the select board, you know, if there was something of significant concern, they could make a decision to look for alternatives. So
I think I'll speak for myself, but I'm really hearing of these new developments myself, really for the first time in the last week or so. So this is all new to us as well as you, I believe. Wally, can you, Kristen's got her hand up for a minute.
I was able to unmute.
You're good, Jerry?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So listening to all this, and I'm looking at the drawings, and I just want to point out a couple of inconsistencies and make sure that they're taken care of. The slope shown on the typical section is 1 and 2, not 1 and 3, as was being discussed. And the depth of the gravel wetland runs from, I think it was 671 to 666, which is 5 feet, not 4 feet. So I just wanted to point those inconsistencies out, assume that they will be corrected on the drawing. I don't know if there's anything you want to speak to about that, but I just wanted to point that out. The inlets with the beehive grates on them, which are supposed to take on any excessive rainwater. I just want to mention so that the town is aware that I guess leaves and things that collect there will need to be removed on a regular basis so that they can function. And I'm wondering how much engineering, dollar-wise, because I listening, and it sounds like there's been a great deal of engineering put into this to get the various options and discussions with the state, and I commend you for all that. But how much, about how much do you think has been exhausted on engineering, and how much of the 318,000 would be left for construction?
a couple months ago, I think in December I checked, we hadn't hit capacity for engineering, which at the top of my, at the time was, we had, I don't want to make a statement because I'm totally off the top of my head. Tyler, do you happen to know?
Yeah,
Oh.
I think in the original bid, the original estimate, there was 31,000 for design engineering. And then there was an additional 38,000 for like bid and construction engineering. I know that we have invoiced more than the 31,000, and we've tapped into that like bid and construction cost analysis when with regard to trying to figure this stuff out and get it estimated and get it into. So I think that total was 69,000 all day. That was the budget we were trying to work against. And I think that I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're getting close. I want to say that it's probably closer to like 60,000 that's been invoiced to the town for engineering services since 2020 or 21 when we first started. When we first initially submitted the application and first started working through this design process and the test pits and working with the state and support of the ARPA funding and all that good stuff.
Okay, so then just in round numbers, not holding anybody to anything, it sounds like there's about $250,000 left for construction as of today. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, it's that 316 less that 60.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Jerry, again, you know, I didn't come in here with all the numbers on engineering, so I'm not comfortable making a statement to the public that I'm not confident that I have the number. Around 60,000 sounds right as of, I believe, December. But I deal with invoices on a daily basis, and I recall since December at least 3 more. But I don't know what the amounts are. I can send out an email to all of the residents here as early as tomorrow, but I didn't come prepared for cost breakdowns of engineering today.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not asking for that. I'm just trying to get a sense for where things are. And next question is, Tyler, can you tell me about how many yards of excavation are involved with the forebay and the gravel wetland?
I don't know that number off the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay, are the plans available so that I can look at them and develop my own quantities?
Actually, I don't think we've shared plans yet, just because they're so conceptual. I will say one of the goals is having this meeting so that we could have this meeting and then get into the design. So we will be working aggressively to get the plans revised.
Yeah, so Jerry, last week we met with Heather, which is part of Tyler's staff at Mumley Engineering. Hannah, excuse me, thanks. And when we discussed with Hannah, there was 2 options. One was narrower, one was wider. The benefit of the wider was that there was much less at ground water retention. And they've not submitted anything to me in the however many days since then to be able to share. As soon as they do, can put it out to everybody. But they've been under the gun following up with the state and the state's asks. And again, the state just barely got back to us, and we're trying to just inform everybody of the concept without having them go forward and submitting specific plans to the state without getting feedback from everybody.
Okay, that's fine. I just thought I could assist the town and the residents with a rough estimate based upon quantities which you're not ready to release. So I will just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. Wally?
Wally Reeve. I live in off Jersey Heights in Jersey Development. Couple of things, a little of the history, because I've been involved in all these meetings, and your question about in 1972 it was built, the town took it over, and then the state in its infamous window changed all the rules on us. That's why we're here today, because they want a cleaner lake. How much we're going to assist in cleaning up the lake with this project? I don't think the Lord knows. As far as cost, the original plan, did the math as best I could. My 1% of that, which is what my property has, was between $3,000 and $4,000. It sounds to me like we're going to be as close to that position as possible with this plan instead of $6,500 with the deep pit or more. So do the best you can, folks, but we've got to swim in this pond anyway.
Thanks, Wally. Kristen?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, and we don't have to push this meeting if it can be covered in the next one, but I would like to understand better what the, I forget the term, catchment basin, whatever it is you're putting in on Foss. If we could see some drawings of that at some point, just how that's going to be approached, maybe a little bit similar to what you've been showing us on the bigger installation, down in the green space. And then my other question has to do with, oh, sorry, do you have the ability to explain it now?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, sure. All right.
So this is the tail end of the ditch along Foss.
Yeah.
So we're proposing installing a catch basin. And then out of that catch basin is going to be two pipes. One is the bypass pipe that will just exit and daylight back into the existing pipe that there's a little head wall right there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then the other pipe will go across the road and continue all the way to the gravel wetland.
And what does a catch basin look like? What are we gonna see when we look out our windows?
You're going to see like a grate cover. So this is a detail of a catch basin.
Uh-huh.
So this is ground level, and then you see a steel grate at ground level, and that way water dumps into it and goes down into the catch basin, and then that's a cross section of the pipe.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. I also have a question about Foss Street. I know I mentioned this at an earlier meeting before you started doing the studies. There is a significant, and I mean significant, amount of water that in the present situation runs down the sidewalk. It's not properly going into any, it's not caught by any of the swales. I don't really know where it's coming from, but it's enough that it's eroding the sidewalk, and it's pretty dangerous in the winter for folks who are trying to walk on it, except that the town does a really good job of salting, I will say. I see that little machine come by early in the morning, but it still can be dangerous. And so I don't know. I just want to flag that again for you guys, because I don't know if the state cares, maybe nobody cares if it's just doing what it's going to do. But it's kind of a hazard for the neighborhood, and I don't know where that water would go in your new system.
Are you talking about along the slope of Foss on the left-hand side, like where this is?
Yes, exactly. Yep.
And it's eroding between the sidewalk and the road?
No, it's eroding the sidewalk itself because it runs down the sidewalk. And I believe it's a little off your screen now, but my house is 285 there. I think it's coming from the road, the fact that like the swales or whatever was installed just there's nothing to catch it. It forms a giant lake or pond, whatever, in front of our driveway sometimes, but most of the time it's just running past our house, and then it sort of like then falls past the mailboxes and goes down the sidewalk anytime we have a major rain.
Okay. Something we can take a further look at.
I'm only mostly raising it just because I don't know how it impacts, like if you're supposed to be catching a certain amount of water, that's not going, I don't know where that's going right now, but.
Yeah, the current design is that we're going to be capturing everything from like this area up on Jersey Way and all the runoff from the sidewalk and the road, like whether it's going left or right or just straight down the sidewalk, it will get into the proposed collection system and get into the gravel wetland.
Mhm.
But if that runoff is creating sedimentation issues and erosion control issues, then that is something we should look at and address.
Yeah, well, we're happy to show you what we see at our house. If you ever want to meet up, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I've seen the ponding of in the driveway, and I think I want to say I talked to somebody about it maybe a year or two ago, but we can. I just took a note to take a look at this.
Yeah. And I'm not trying to get special attention on our driveway thing. It's more what is more constant is the sidewalk issue. The pond outside our house comes and goes. Okay, so final question. I'm so sorry to dominate too much, but going back to the big installation that you're doing behind Dale's house. I know you said there's going to be a foot of like ground material there, and that's what the plantings are sitting in. I'm curious about whether the gravel underneath, you said it's going to be wet all the time. Does that mean that, basically cutting to the chase, I'm wondering in the dry summer months, are the plants going to die in that foot of soil, or do they have a constant source of moisture because the state wants that area to be wet all the time?
Yeah, the idea is that the controlled water level is 6 inches below the top of that dirt material and the vegetation, so that the material the plants can still have roots to get into that water. I mean, if it was a absolute summer drought and there hadn't been any rain for a long time, I don't know what happens. I cannot pretend to be an expert on how the plants are going to survive, but the design is that the pond has maintained water level at 6 inches below the surface of the ground so that the vegetation can survive.
Okay. I'm mostly asking for like town maintenance type questions and stuff like that, because I'm assuming that that's not going to be Menashe's. It's going to be owned by the town, obviously. And just, curious about how well maintained it will be, especially everybody, as someone else mentioned, all the people who are kind of up on that ridge are going to be looking right down into it.
Yeah, the town is taking ownership of the permit, and there is a requirement of the permit that there are annual inspections. And so that this pond is going to be inspected every spring. And that's when we look at the pipes, we look at the catch basins, we look at the sedimentation forebay, we look at the gravel wetland, and we inspect it to make sure that it's operating correctly, that, whether or not it needs to be cleaned out. And that includes a report that goes to the town, and the town has that report and they act upon it. And so it isn't like this is going to get constructed and be forgot about. It is going to be inspected every year so that it is maintained.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Kate?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So a question about the forebay. You said that's gravel covered with riffraff. What is riffraff?
Rip-rap, like just a stone layer.
So will there not be vegetation over the forebay?
Well, the answer is likely yes. That like it will have vegetation. Like I said, there will be dirt and sedimentation that gets into the forebay. Like the gravel wetland itself is constructed in order to have a dirt layer with actual vegetation plantings, so that the entire gravel wetland looks and feels like a vegetation area. The sedimentation forebay is more of a maintenance catch, right? So the pipe outlets into the forebay, and it will, again, over time, fill the forebay with dirt. And so because there's going to be dirt in the forebay, there's going to be vegetation that's going to grow. And but there's also going to be fresh dirt coming in from the forebay runoff. So there's going to be areas that might not have vegetation. And then the sides of the forebay are lined with this riprap stone material to help prevent erosion. And so I don't think the forebay is going to be as nice looking as the gravel wetland. The gravel wetland is just going to be vegetation. You know, it's going to get, from a visual standpoint, the gravel wetland is going to get lost in your view just because it's going to be green and vegetated. Whereas the forebay is going to have some gravel, some stone riprap in there, and it's going to have some dirt in there, and it's going to have some vegetation in there. And on a somewhat, probably not annual, it's more like 2 or 3 years, we're going to get in there and dredge out the sediment forebay because it's going to fill up with dirt. And so when that happens, it's going to look like more like a fresh construction little area. But again, the idea is that the gravel forebay is not, it's not as large as a gravel wetland area. It's a smaller area that's intended to capture runoff from the pipe and hold the sedimentation so we can clean it out, every few years or so.
Okay, thank you. My last question is, the diagrams, I understand that the plans aren't going to be available, but the diagrams that you've showed us tonight, are those things that we can access after the meeting?
I would say no, only because these are very conceptual. Somebody earlier pointed out some irregularities. I don't feel comfortable publishing these right now because they haven't been fully cooked. They're not totally correct. And I would appreciate if we could have time to refine these before they get published.
Yeah, and it's, as soon as they are refined, the town will push them out to everybody who has their emails with us. If you don't have your name and your email with us, please reach out to Judy and me, and we'll ask that all the people, that are proactive in communicating to your neighbors that you share it. We'll also put it up on the website. We'll be sharing all of this as soon as it's less conceptual and much more defined and triple checked by the engineers.
I have one more question, sorry. And that is, my neighbor is rated as, I'm not sure if rating is the right word, but is assigned to 2%, whereas most of the rest of us is 1%. And I talked to you a while ago about whether there would be any chance for him to protest that.
No, it's pretty scientific the way that the percentages were calculated. And Tyler, do you want to get into detail about how that?
Well, let me just say his house is smaller than my house, and I'm 1% and he's 2%.
Is his driveway longer?
Not well, maybe just a little bit. This is LB. LB Goodell.
Doesn't he have a double driveway?
That's the other house. The two houses, the driveway goes like this. One of the adults' house, I don't know who owns it.
So I mean, we just took direct measurements based on the impervious surface that we calculated using most recent aerial imagery. So we're able to download topography and aerial imagery from the state database, and it's geo-referenced. And so when we bring it into our CAD program, it's to scale. So we use our CAD program to just make a measurement of the driveways and houses, the square footage of each lot, and that's what we recorded into the spreadsheet.
But if you look at
you can email me,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I'll have that specific lot really quadruple checked by now, but I mean specifically checked, and we'll get an answer for you about.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You have my email?
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
If everything goes well, maybe you've already covered this, but when would we see trucks and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is
This summer?
yeah, early summer.
The second thing, are you familiar with the project, the development they have to the right of Jersey Way and back of Kate's house and
Yes.
they have ponds there. Are they similar? Because
You're talking
they have
about
indentations.
the Jersey Heights Phase 2 that Minash still owns.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I think so.
I know they have stormwater ponds there. I designed them. And I'm drawing a blank on exactly where they are. That project is kind of two phases, you know, where the big field is at the big field off at Cottage Way. That's like a road going in with a bunch of single family houses that would be around it. And my brain is drawing a blank on where their pond is. I think it's out because there's that wetland that bisects that field.
Is it similar technology though, Tyler? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just say because people could maybe look at that and
Well, I mean, nothing is constructed out there yet.
oh no, but there's ponds. There's what looks like you know what you're describing. There's like indentations that are down 4 or 5 feet that are yeah, mostly not full of water.
Is it recent?
Last summer. They did a lot of work last summer.
Summer before last.
Yeah, I feel like I've been by there and I don't,
It's not in that field. It's well, it's in back of Kate's house. It's
are you talking about into the woods? You're talking about right past, yeah. It's right through here. Whose house is this?
oh yes, there's a road like
Yeah.
right
Where that road
there.
goes in there?
Yeah, and there's ponds right here.
Huh. Yeah, I just can't remember off the top of my head. I can't remember if those are gravel wetlands or not.
They have couple of different things. Anyway, so if, never mind. I thought maybe it would be convenient for people to look at. Maybe not.
Tyler, can you look into that? And if it is the same, can you let us know if it's fully constructed or it's partially constructed?
Yes.
Dale Touchette again. I just want to go back to what Jerry said. You were saying that it's a 4 foot from the top of the ground level that goes down into this pond. Was he, when he said 5, was he talking about that level from ground level? It's instead of 4 feet, it's 5 feet down.
Yeah, again, I tell you, like, these plans aren't fully cooked, aren't fully baked. So if there's an error, then my apologies. Yeah, so what he's referring to maybe is on this detail. I say top of berm 671, spillway 670.5. But again, these plans aren't perfect right now. And so I ask you to take, a grain of salt. But right here, I have a top elevation of 670, which is the top of pond. There would be a 670 wraparound. But over here, my top is 669. So it's not a completely flat area out there. I'm telling you that based on the conceptual plans we have right now, that it's approximately a 4 foot deep pond. On the high side, it's going to be deeper because the hill goes up. So like we're constructing this into the hillside. So you see more contours on the high side, right?
And that come right close up to this pond, is that gonna come right close up to the whatever those trees are? That big hill kind of thing that's behind my house.
Yeah. So if you look up here, the bottom of the page is the hill. See you can see the contour lines. There's actually a tree line shown right here. So it's pretty much like the edge of the edge of canopy. And then you can see where these are the proposed grade lines that are cutting into the ground, going down to the top of or the bottom of the pond, the top of the gravel wetland.
Okay, and does the other side come down to the swale that's behind my house?
Yeah, it's a pretty good distance off. We tried to maintain as much distance from your property as possible.
So you said it's not that close to the swale. Is that what you said?
So this is your property line,
Mhm.
and it's almost 30 feet to where it drops down into the pond.
Okay.
I think that swale is about 15 feet off your property line. That swale should mostly dry up, so you probably could plant some corn there.
Do we have anything else, Brent?
If there's no other questions, first of all, I want to thank you all. I understand there's lots of questions still remaining. But I want to thank you for being here, also people online. And as soon as we get more concrete information, including I'll get the calculations for what we've expended for engineering. We'll push that out to all of you and also put it on the website. I also want to thank the select board for this special meeting. The select board, has heard me complaining a lot. But they haven't had any details, beyond a little bit that I've shared with them just before this meeting. So, just appreciate the select board being here tonight for this special meeting.
Anyone have anything further to add? No. I'd like to say I appreciate everybody coming out, and there's a lot of different perspectives here that weren't necessarily there in the last go round of this. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys.
I make a motion.
Motion, second?
Second.
So motion by Leah, second by George to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's unanimous.
Thank you to all you guys who are putting in a lot of hours on this too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry. Yeah.